Alright, this is Mr. Rugercat 45 and I'll be doing this video on EDC carry knives. So, well, I guess the first question is, what is an EDC knife? For some people, well, I guess it's just something that they carry in their pockets, as it has been for a long time. Everything from something like this, just a regular little case pocket knife, yeah, all the way to something, well, like this. Cold steel Laredo Bowie. However, for most of us, I guess the ideal EDC carry knife would fall somewhere in between those two extremes. So if you hold on just a minute while I get the camera set up. I have no camera assistant. I'm doing it all by myself. I'll get it set up and we'll start the video. Alrighty. Here's some of my favorite EDC knives, and I'll get into what makes them my favorite and what are some of the things wrong with it here in just a second. I guess I'll show you some of the older classic tactical carry knives. This is just a regular two-blade folding hunter. This has been kind of a standard EDC carry knife for a lot of people for a lot of years, and it's also one of my favorites. I haven't carried these for a very long time, but they're very nice classic knives. This is a Schrade Uncle Henry. Here's another one. This one's made by Case. This is a 6265, I believe. If I'm not mistaken, this is a U.S. Navy issue one. Beautiful knife. There's nothing absolutely wrong with these as EDC carry knives. They don't have blade locks. For some of you, that really doesn't matter. However, the springs are so strong on these that it really isn't that big of an issue. As long as you don't do a lot of, you know, things that would make it unsafe for you. You can drill with it or punch through things if you just make sure that you hold it the right way and make sure it doesn't close on your hands. Anyways, here's the Schrade Uncle Henry knockoff of the Buck 110, which this is for a lot of people the ideal carry knife, EDC style knife, and what you may have seen a lot of people carry in years past. I bought this at a pawn shop some years ago, and I looked closely at it. There's a date engraved on it in electric pencil right here, 1982. So that's an old timer from the good old days. You can tell by the sheath there, somebody has definitely put some wear on that knife and the sheath. The sheath originally went to a old timer, probably one of their old timer Buck 110 knockoffs, or maybe a folding hunter, I'm not really sure, but it came together. Alrighty. Now this one I plan to carry myself. This is a Moore Maker sheath, and it's an old timer two-blade folding hunter. Very nice knife. I remember a couple of guys that I used to look up to when I was a teenager. I used to carry these. And I think that's one of the reasons why I like this pattern so much. There we go. Maybe you can see that a little bit better. Now these used to be carried by a lot of working people, foresters, construction people, outdoorsmen. That's why the lanyard, a lot of times they wouldn't carry it in a pouch sheath. They would just stick it in their back pocket, in their front pocket, or in a Carhartt pocket, or in a Filson cruiser vest or something like that. And if they wanted to get it out quickly and easily, the lanyard was the easy way to do it. Now these have very strong springs, like I said, some stronger than others. And I really, if I wanted to carry this, it would not stop me from using it from 99% of everything that is possibly used for. I'm not saying it's a fighting knife. That's not what this is for. This is a strictly using knife. Anyway, moving right along. The one that every one of them kind of tried to copy is the Buck. This is actually the 112, the Ranger. It's a little bit smaller, but I prefer it because it's got that little curve right there. It fits my fingers better. And it's just a personal opinion. There we go. You can see it better a little bit. It's a 3 1/4 inch blade. Brass liners and bolsters. Laminated wood handles. Nice back lock on it. Again, absolutely nothing wrong with it. Just because it's a little, older fashioned doesn't mean that you can't carry it and you won't like it now. Alrighty. I guess when I started getting into knives back in the late 80s, one of the first knives that I really fell in love with was the Sawed Tomcat. For me, that kind of embodied everything that I would want in an EDC knife back then, and for a long time afterwards. Beautiful knife, just a classic style with that SOG style blade, like all their, sheath knives have. They claim that it's got a stronger than average lock. I think they said it's got a negative draft lock. And I've never tested that out myself, but it's a tough knife. This one I got off eBay some years ago, and I got a decent price on it because it was used. Otherwise, you'd be paying through the nose for it. But again, one of my favorite knives, and for many years the standard that I judged others by. Alrighty. Zoom in a little bit closer here. Alrighty. Let's start right here. This is a Benchmade AFCK. This is one of the late models, I believe the 3rd generation, with the D2 blade and the axis lock. It's a very good knife. Back about 1995, I bought the 1st generation AFCK with the ATS blade and the titanium liner lock. And I carried that knife for many years. And it was really hard to find something to top that knife. The only thing that really I didn't like is that ATS 34 blade. ATS is a pain in the butt to sharpen, and it doesn't take a very sharp edge when it finally does get sharpened. I prefer a carbon steel, and that knife had a lot to do with me preferring carbon steel. I know D2 is a little bit closer toward carbon steel, but because of the carbon content, I've heard a lot of things about it being hard to sharpen, and I really wish they would make something in a tougher carbon steel, but I can't really fault Benchmade. They're doing, what they think is best. There's really nothing wrong with this knife. This is one of my top ones right now. I'll pick out my top 4 or 5 or whatever as the video progresses, and I'll show you what I think are my favorites. But this is definitely one of them. This is a quick knife to open. If I can get this to show you here. I've tightened it up so you can't really do kind of a gravity knife. There we go. Very quick to open, very easy, very smooth to open, and very safe because of that axis lock. One of my all-time favorites. If this is what I had to carry, I would not hesitate at all. Alrighty, let's start with another one here. This is the SOG Pentagon Elite 2, I believe. Let's see. Yep, Pentagon Elite 2. This one I found in the parking lot of my place of employment. So I think this is the only knife I have ever found in my entire life. And boy, that was a heck of a find there. Again, it's got what their version of the axis lock. They call this the arc lock. And again, this is a very quick lock. The blade is just a little bit bigger, so it's easier to swing it in and out. I'm trying to get this in the camera angle so you all can see this. The blade's a little long, but it carries very, very well. I thought it'd be a little awkward, but when I started carrying it, I can't even feel it. You can't tell you're carrying it. It's a very well designed knife. It's about a 4.5, 4 3/4 inch blade, AUS 8 steel, part serrated, and it's got this little tiny sharpened back of the edge here. They call it a shark tooth tip. I call it a swag tip. A lot of the older knife fighters, you say that you can use it for a back cut a little bit, but I think it's got a lot of other more utilitarian uses. If you really think about it, this right here is the modern equivalent of basically something from 10,000 years ago. The handle, it's got a handle, very old-fashioned blade, just like an old chipped stone blade shape. Serrations, of course, the old chipped stone blades, they all had just serrations, so we got an advantage on them, of course, with that. It's got a plain edge, and that tip, you can use that for a lot of bushcraft things. You can use that for drilling holes, scribing. There's a word that I'm trying to find. It's kind of, I don't know, it has to do with scoring. When you're working bone, you use a piece of flint and you score a line, and you just keep scoring that line and going over and over and over it until the piece breaks in half, kind of like scoring glass. Well, this tip you can do that with to plastic, wood, whatever. I'm not just saying it's used for old materials or wood and bone. You can use this for plexiglass, whatever. It's a very useful tip, and it's very tough. It's got stainless steel liners, so it's reinforced. Very open design. Not a lot of lint will catch in it. I prefer knives with the point up. It's a lot quicker for me, at least, to get out. So this is another one of those knives that I would really think hard about picking if I was going to pick just one. This is another one of my top choices. Beautiful knife, plus the neat little story that I found it. So, SOG Pentagon Elite 2. Alright, these two. This is the Cold Steel AK-47. This is the old model. The one, I prefer the old model personally. I'll show you this one, G10 version. This one I bought on discount at Smoky Mountain Knife Works several years ago, and they were being discontinued. And this one was $39.99. The aluminum version was $29.99. And that was just too good of a deal to beat. I really didn't know what to think of it at the time. Being as it is made in Taiwan, I thought, for that kind of price, I'll just buy it and kind of stash it for a rainy day, maybe for a trade blade if somebody needs it or something like that. And I started carrying it just to try it out. Well, I ended up absolutely loving this knife. This is one of the best, if not possibly the best, EDC carry knife I have ever used. And that's saying a lot, because I've used a lot of expensive, higher priced blades. And now this one wasn't cheap originally before they were discontinued. They were around $100 from Cold Steel, so they're not cheap made. And after carrying it for several years, I have to say, the Taiwan factory that Cold Steel uses produces every bit as fine as a knife as a Japanese factory or a US knife factory. Every bit of it. This lock at first was a little bit stiff and gritty. I put a little Tough Glide on it, and I just worked it, did this about 500 times a day while I was watching TV, and it worked it out really smooth. And that's not me loosening up the screw or anything. That's just me working it with a little bit of oil and good old elbow grease. Once you get that lock smoothed out, it's very smooth. It'll never be as smooth as a Benchmade Axis lock or SOG arc lock, but supposedly Cold Steel claimed that this is one of the strongest locks on the market, and all those kind of, you know, pull and push button locks tend to be pretty strong because of their design. I'm not sure which one's the strongest, but I ended up really liking this one a lot. The handle also, it's very comfortable. It's a big handle. At first I thought it was a little too big for me. I thought, you know, it had a little bit too much real estate on it, but I ended up liking it a lot. The blade isn't as big as, you know, the knife looks like it would be huge, but it's only a 3.5 inch blade. The handle it's a lot longer than it needs to be. But for a lot of guys, especially you military and police guys, people that work with gloves, you're going to love this handle. I can guarantee you that. The blade is AUS 8 stainless steel. They have a new version which looks almost the same, except the lock is different. It's the new Triad lock, and I believe it's a little bit lighter. It does not have the stainless steel liners, unfortunately, in my opinion. Now they say it's just as strong or stronger as as their old models. I kind of have a hard time believing that. I'll explain why. Okay. Now I'm not sure if they're only talking about their G10 version, but this is the aluminum version. Exactly the same, just a bead blasted blade, and it's got an aluminum handle with stainless steel liners. So they're trying to tell me that a G10 handle without liners is stronger than an aluminum handle with stainless steel liners. You can see where I'm going with that. But anyway, point is, these are some of the best ones out there. I ended up buying the aluminum handle version on eBay just a few years later because it was getting hard to find, and I really liked the knife, so I wanted to have one of each one to see which one I liked better. If I had to pick, I would probably pick the G10 version just because of the grip, and it's just a little bit lighter. I don't like the way aluminum feels. It kind of gets cold, and I work with a lot of grease and slippery materials, so it tends to get a little slick. Alrighty. Alright. Now this is the one that I had very high expectations for, and I thought this is going to eclipse all my EDC carry knives, and it's going to be the new top EDC knife. And for a while I thought it would be. If any of you, I'm sure you guys know Nothing Fancy on YouTube, watch his video on the hostile environment survival tool, and you'll understand why. He did test it. Admittedly, it was a fairly rough test, but not for a survival emergency knife, I think. I think he was spot on with that test. He batoned it through some wood, and it wasn't a whole bunch of, you know, wood. It was just a few times from what I heard. And the knife loosened up, and it was the blade was loose and jiggly. And from what DPX Gear advertises this knife as, it should not have happened, in my opinion. Maybe I'm wrong about that, but that's just my personal opinion. If it's a knife that you're going to stake your life on, I believe that it should be able to put up with that. Anyway, that's not saying that a lot of you won't find this to be your perfect knife. Even with that video, I could still carry this and probably never ever, you know, wear the knife out or loosen it up like that, because I wouldn't baton it unless it was a life or death matter or necessary. The blade's about a 3¼ inches long, somewhere around there. It's a D2. It's got a G10 handle, and one side of it is titanium. It's got a very, very strong frame lock, and also on the back of it here, I can't remember what I think it's called a roto block or something like that. You can essentially lock it open or closed, I think. Let's see. No, I guess just open. And by what the company says, it's supposed to be pretty much as strong as a fixed blade. Well, I know better than to believe that, because there's no such thing as a folding knife that's as strong as a fixed blade. It just doesn't exist. But anyway, it's a beautiful knife, and this is also one of my top, if I had to pick top 3, this one would be among them, because of all the useful features it has. It's got a little carbide glass breaker that you can put on the end of it that it comes with. That's a very handy feature if you're a police officer or a rescue firefighter or just a concerned citizen. There's a lot of times that people come across accidents, and if you don't have nothing to get windows open with and people are trapped inside, that could have definitely dire consequences. Also, it's got a 1/4-inch hex drive right there, bit hole. So all you do is put the adapter in there, put the hex bit, and you can use the handle to turn the bit. That's a very handy feature. Bottle opener right there, wire strippers, those little notches right there. I don't know if you can see that. And right here, the sheath knife has a wire breaker. Now this one does not. Even if this one did have that little notch there for wire breaking, it wouldn't be a good idea to use a folder for wire breaking, as you know. But this is a very good knife. It's also a very expensive knife. It's got a very deep carry pocket clip. When you put that in your pocket, you can not see any of the knife at all. It's definitely worth the money. Alrighty. Moving right along. This is the Timberline Wartac, and it's not one of my top ones, but it's a very comfortable knife. It's got an incredibly comfortable handle. The handle comfort definitely rates very high. The blade is about 3 3/4, AUS 8, parts rated, made in Taiwan, but it's a very, very well made knife. A lot of you, once you put this knife in your hand, you're definitely going to fall in love with it. It's got a perfect grip. As you all know, Kelly Warden, he's a martial arts instructor. I believe he does a lot of the Filipino martial arts, and he definitely knows his stuff. He designed a good knife. Alrighty. Another one from Taiwan. This is the Columbia River Knife and Tool Crawford Casper Fighter. This is the NRA version, but this one also. This is one of those knives that it's not one of my top 3 or 4 maybe, but it's up there because of the feel. It was designed by Mr. Casper as the ideal defensive folder, and I think he did a pretty darn good job of that. The handle is definitely one of the best I felt, and it's got the Lake and Walker knife safety, the locks that you can use it as a secondary lock. I hesitate to say, make it as safe as a fixed blade, because like I said, it's not going to happen. This one, unfortunately, carries only with the tip down, so that's a little strike against it. I did carry one of these for a few years. At the time I didn't like it, but later on I ended up buying another one because kind of started thinking about it. You don't know what you got till it's gone, I guess. Spyderco. This is the James Keating. This is the 3rd generation. The S30V blade, flat ground. I believe about a 3 3/4 inch flat ground S30V blade. Stainless steel liners, G10 handle. This is designed by James Keating, and as you know, James Keating, he's a martial arts instructor, and he's another guy that definitely knows what he's talking about. He's a proponent of the Bowie blades, the Bowie blade shape, and so am I, of course. I love Bowie knives, so of course I had to get this one. I prefer the first generation blade shape, but this one is definitely better steel. The first one had 440V stainless steel, which I don't like 440V. Too hard to sharpen, it chips, it's a pain in the butt to sharpen that stuff. I didn't like it. The S30V is a little easier to sharpen, but still a little bit, you know, more than it needs to be. It's a good knife. I like the blade shape on this one too. Not as much as the first one though. It does carry point up or point down. And it's got an incredibly comfortable handle. This one was my daily carry knife for well over a year or two. Alright. Cold Steel Spartan. Now this I bought a little over a year ago, maybe a year and a half ago now. I bought this one to replace my G10 AK-47 because at the time these were getting semi-collectible and I didn't want to mess it up anymore. So I bought this one to replace it because they're still making these. And to be honest, Nothing Fancy does a great review of knives, and if you watch this one, you'll understand. He definitely he knocked it out of the park on this review. The blade is 4.5 inches long, AUS 8 stainless steel. Oh God. Grivery, I believe, is the name of the plastic used in the handle, Grivery or Grivex. Stainless steel liners. It's got the triad lock, which they claim is the strongest that they found. It's a definitely stiff lock. I really do prefer sliding button locks, like on the AK-47, the Benchmade, and the SOG. But it's just a small thing. It's not really something that I would not carry the knife because of. Just a little, takes getting used to. And this is actually right now, for a long time, has been my carry knife, my EDC knife. As you can see, I've carried a little extra paracord on it. Now, it is a heavy knife. A lot of people will not want to carry it because it's about, I think, 9 ounces around there. It's a heavy knife. It's a big, big blade. It's definitely on the limit of what I'm willing to carry every day. Here we go, one of my favorites. This is the Almar Sear 2000. I completely loved the Almar Sear lockbacks in the late 80s, and the fixed blades also. Those are some of the most beautiful, well-designed, comfortable in the hand knives I have ever felt my entire life, and it carries over into the Sear 2000. This one would definitely be among my top 3 EDC carry knives. There's small points that I don't like about it, such as the lock. It's a regular stainless steel liner lock, but it's not enough, you know, to make me not like the knife. It weighs about 6.2 ounces, I believe. I'm not totally sure. Blade is 3 1/4, 3 1/2, somewhere around there. VG10 stainless steel, flat ground, very, very well flat ground. I'm not too crazy about saber grinds because I like that high, thin, long, flat grind, but they did a really great job on this one, and it's very sharp. This one's made by Moki in Japan. Stainless steel liners. And it's got a very, very deep carry clip. It only carries with the point up, which that's not a problem for me, of course. Very quick knife. Also, another thing I was going to let you know, me personally, I'm not a great fan of the thumb studs. I prefer the plate, like Cold Steel uses. on their knives, or the thumb hole, like Spyderco's. It's really hard for it to slip out of something like that versus that right there. Now I have to say the Almar Sear 2000 did a very good job on that thumb stud. It's difficult to slip off. It does act like a thumb plate more, but there are some thumb studs on some knives that your thumb just glides right off of, and under stress or duress, your hands are slippery, whatever, it's going to slide right off and you're going to fumble at the opening, if not drop the knife altogether. But this is one of my top three, definitely. It's an expensive knife. Expect to pay about $2,000, good grief. About $200 or a little bit more, but it's worth every single penny. They come out in Digicam, I believe, and in kind of like a forest green color also. Unfortunately, of course, the Digicam does not come in a black blade. So, oh well. Alrighty. Now this is one that's got a really good grip on it, but a lot of you won't be able to carry it because it is automatic. I don't carry it. It's only at home. I bought it at a pawn shop, and I was lucky to get it because, yeah, that's all I'm going to say about that. This is a Gerber. I'm not sure what the name is. I think it's called the 06 Auto, and it comes in either the drop point or the Tonto point. It's got an S30V blade, part serrated. I wish it didn't have the serrations personally. Aluminum handle, and it's got the safety button, which you can use as a secondary lock on it. Very, very stiff clip. Carries only with the point up, and it's got a little stainless or steel spacer here, which you can use as a non-lethal striking device or for breaking glass. So for those of you who can legally carry a switchblade, this is one of the better ones, I think. The grip is what does it. The grip is beautifully made. Even though I don't like aluminum, they did a good job on it. My hand fits perfectly into that. Alrighty, let's go on to sheath knives. Probably running out of battery. This is the Fred Perrin neck Bowie. Out of all the sheath knife EDCs that I've got, this is definitely one of my best. And I carried this one for a year or two. This one is, I'm not sure if it's made in France or in Taiwan, but it's made of 12C27 Swedish stainless steel. It takes a wickedly sharp edge. These are available from Boker and some companies in France. There's some other company, I believe, that sells them in the United States. I think Lati Zabo, the martial artist, sells these. So go to try LatiZabo.com and see if he sells these. By the way, 12C27 Swedish stainless steel, in my opinion, that's probably the best stainless steel out there. Sharpens easily, takes a wickedly sharp edge, very pure stainless steel. Sweden's got probably the best steel and iron out there, I believe, in the whole world. The iron ore that comes from Sweden is just very pure, and they do a really kick-butt job on their steel. It's also got the advantage of being fairly low priced. If I had a choice between, let's say, S30VN or 12C27, I'd pick 12C27 any day of the week. And that's just my personal opinion. Yours might be different, but that's my opinion. The bigger version, I believe the Street Bowie, they don't come wrapped like that. You can order it, but it's extra money. I went ahead and wrapped mine. Again, 4-inch blade. 12C27 stainless steel. It's got the Fred Perrin cutout logo. Just a very simple neck sheath that you can rig it up to carry inside the waistband if you wanted to, but there's not any really need for it. This is one of my favorites. This is a beautiful knife. The one thing that I like about Fred Perrin's designs is that right there, that 4-finger notch. There's very few knives that are more comfortable in the hand than one of Fred Perrin's designs. Now I'll be reviewing some other Fred Perrin designs in my Bowie videos that are coming up. The one from Spyderco, that one, I wasn't really sure if you could consider that an EDC knife, considering the blade is 5 inches long, and my real limit is about 4.5 inches. What I consider a daily EDC carry, especially for sheath knives. So I went ahead and left that one out. And a lot of these knives you will be seeing in my other video. I have some videos coming out on survival knives, SERE knives, S-E-R-E, the acronym for Survival, Evasion, Resistance, Escape. I'll be doing a video on those. Here's another one that I really like. This is a Puma, the Python from Germany. I think it's about a 3-inch blade, maybe just a little bit under. 1.4116 stainless blade. I think if you had to translate it as something that we use, I think it'd be about the German equivalent of 420 stainless, something like that, 420, 440. Except it holds its edge quite a bit better for some reason. I guess the alloy makeup, it's got a little tweaks in it. I did carry this one also as an EDC knife. Quite honestly, there's very few things that you're going to do or cut with a knife that's going to require a blade longer than this. It's a very handy knife. These aren't one of the more expensive Pumas. These I believe I got from a discount catalog for about $17 a piece a few years ago. I wish I had bought about 5 more, but they're still available out there for a good price. Just regular checkered nylon scales, leather sheath. I like the Bowie clip blade, but it also comes with a Tonto type blade and a drop point. And this is honestly one of my favorite EDC sheath knives. Alrighty. This is the Hest, the original one. Blade is 3¼ inches long, 1095 carbon steel. It's got a little pry bar tip right there that you can use for, they say, scraping or prying. The bottle opener. And this one's got a little tiny notch right there, if you can see that. Right where the ricasso ends and the edge starts. And that's where you can put wire and bend it back and forth and snap it. A little wire snapper or breaker. This one is one of the old models. The newer ones, I believe, they have the little hex driver right there. So you can use it as, put the hex bit adapter and use it to turn screws. Mine doesn't have that, but still, this is a great knife. This one I got, I believe, for about $150 a few years ago. I got a good deal on it. I think I won $50 off in a contest, something like that. When you take the handles off, it's got a little space underneath the handle where you can put some tiny things, maybe a compass, maybe a fishing kit or a small ferro rod, something like that. The screws are, they're big enough slots that you could use something like a dime to take them off, or maybe a Swiss Army knife or whatever. So this is definitely a good EDC carry knife. Honestly, if I had to pick one single sheath knife as an EDC, it might just be this one. It does very good crossover as an EDC, bushcraft, survival, defensive, kind of a bit of everything knife. It doesn't do every one job perfectly, but it does them all good enough. The sheath has got a locking belt liner or belt clip on it. You can carry it as a neck knife if you want to. Come on. Yeah, once you put that on, it's not going to come off easily, so you don't have to worry about that. There we go. It's a very secure sheath. Good knife, worth every penny. This is the K-Bar. Let's see, I think it's the BK11. They also call it the Becker Necker. This one is the carbon stainless metal. That's what they call it. It's basically a Sanmai Japanese steel. 420 stainless steel sides up here, and the edge is, I think, white steel number 2. They say a carbon steel. So you get the best of both worlds. You get mainly a stainless knife with a carbon edge for cutting. This one's got a bottle opener on the back of it here, and if you can see the little notch, they say you can break wires with that. Well, maybe. I never tried it. I carry a little paracord on mine. I also rigged mine up a little differently. I'll let you see that. I'll have a video on this pretty soon. I rigged it up with zip ties instead of belt loops. It does not come with any kind of a belt attachment because it really doesn't need it. You can lace parachute cord through there if you want to and use that for a belt loop if you so desire. I just took some zip ties and tighten them up, and what you do is you cut them off about 1/4 of an inch above the locks and melt them down to make sure they're not going to come off. And if I were going to do it again, make sure you put the little locks on the outside and on the down part. This is another one of those. This one I've been carrying every day for about a year or two, so I'm not just talking about it. I actually do carry these knives. This is a kind of a newer knife, the Columbia River, the Doug Ritter RSK Mark VI. This is a fairly new knife. I've had it for about a month or so. Beautiful knife. Feels great in the hand. Anything that Doug Ritter makes, I know I'm going to like. I'm trying to think of the steel exactly in this knife. I'm not really sure. I'm sure it has it on the Columbia River website. I can't remember everything. I've got tons of knives. Got a very comfortable neck sheath. Very tight neck sheath, I have to say. One of the more comfortable handles, and they say it's a perfect size. It's between the larger models that they have and the ultra small one that I'll show you here. Alright, here we get into what I call the micro EDC knives. This is the RSK Mark V. They made that as a survival kit type knife to put in a little Altoids tin or whatever. Alright, come back here. But some people consider these EDC knives, and yeah, there's nothing wrong with that, but I consider it kind of a backup EDC knife. Maybe in your back pocket or in your kit, carry a folding knife in your front pocket, or maybe a small sheath knife in your belt inside the waistband or appendix. Alright, the Columbia River. This is the Flavio Icoma model. Can't remember the name of it, but here it is. Also fairly recent that I got. This is one of the better designed knives that I think personally. I really wish this knife came in a model about twice its size. Honestly, that's how much I like this one. I think they're discontinued, so if you want these, you better hurry up and get on eBay. You can find prices as low as 10 or 15 bucks for these. I think I bought this one for about $12 plus shipping. You can't beat that. The blade is about 2 inches, maybe 1.4116 stainless. Some kind of fiber reinforced nylon handles. Very comfortable, very much a Alaskan Ulu style design, which I happen to be a big fan of. It's ground on one side only, so it can fit onto the little plate sheath that it's got without cutting you, and so it fits and seals up against it nicely, which it's also a good thing because the single edge grind for one side, it's good for stripping bark. If you're doing some skinning work on an animal, caping, things like that, it does a really bang up job on that. It's easier to sharpen if you're not familiar with sharpening. You can do a lot of scraping with it, things like that. It's a very good knife. Like I said, it's one of my favorite little tiny EDC carry knives. Another one that I carry on my keychain. I'm sure some of you are counting, how many knives does this guy carry? About 4 or 5. Alrighty. This is the Magnum by Boker escape knife. 420 stainless steel, micarta handle. This is one of the better little tiny kit knives. Feels great in the hand. You're not going to drop that. I'm sure you all can see the potential for defensive uses for that, and yeah, it's there definitely. But it's also a fairly safe knife if you're using it above water for skinning and things like that, because you're not going to drop it if you need to do something else. If you need to hold a phone or something, or fishing rod, if you're cutting some fish, whatever. It's got a very thin, just a wisp thin blade. Once you sharpen that, it's going to be absolutely razor sharp. And this is the one that I would personally pick to put in a kind of a larger size survival kit. It's got a leather sheath with a boot or belt clip. Very comfortable. You can still get these, I believe, about $20, no more. And this is by Magnum. I think Boker distributes them. It's called the Escape Knife. Alright, here's an old timer. This is the Arclight by Cuda, or Arclight Cuda, and it's by Camelus. They don't make these anymore. It was a good knife though, definitely. I think it was 420 HC stainless steel. Comfortable knife. You could probably still find them on the secondary market. A little German-made wallet card knife. This is really into the sear knives, but I guess you can kind of consider it a EDC carry knife. Also ground from one side like a Ulu knife, 2 finger holes, so you're not going to lose that. Very well designed knife. I'm not sure if they sell these anymore. I got this at Smoky Mountain Knife Works because I'm blessed to live about 10 miles away from knife heaven. I got this a few years ago, and when I went back to get more of them, they were out. It's made by the European Community Cutlery Company, I think. Let me see. The ECC, European Cutlery Company. I'm not really sure who distributes it, if they even make it anymore. But if you find one, buy it. You definitely won't regret it. I'll show you. Look how thin that little thing is. That's about the size of 3 or 4 credit cards. Folks, most of us carry more credit cards in our wallet than that right there. That's a great survival kit knife if you manage to find one. Here's the little Buck Hartsook 860. That's a little micro wisp of a knife. This is S30V stainless steel. They have a satin finished one with 420 stainless steel, which for a knife like that, I personally would prefer 420 stainless because it's easier to sharpen, it's cheaper, and there's just really no need, I think, for something that is going to take, you know, a half hour to sharpen after it gets dull, especially in a survival situation. But I mean, it's your choice. Very nice little knife, very small. You can carry that on a keychain easily, or as a neck knife. It'll disappear under your shirt. Comfortable knife for as small as that handle is. You can lash it to a pole if you need to use it to cut down some fruit or whatever you need to, you know, get out of some tall tree. Good knife. Alrighty. This is by Meyer Co. It's one of the Dirk Peterson models. I think it's called the Warning. One of the better knives I think that they make, if they even make it still. That Warncliffe blade just cuts like crazy, and that handle, it's designed very, very well. Very comfortable knife. I got these on this one on closeout for $9.99 at Smoky Mountain Knife Works. And I was very lucky to do so. I wish I had a chance to get about 5 more. Also got a little neck boot belt sheath. Very stiff clip. Locks in securely. Great knife. Little micarta handle on it. Fairly heavy for how small it is. I'm not sure of the steel. I'm sure it's something like 440A or 420. Flat ground. It's got a good edge, easy to sharpen. Very good defensive and utility knife. Very good. It's made in China, and I'm not a great fan of Chinese knives, but you're not going to regret that. Definitely. It's made well for the money. Definitely. Alrighty, moving right along. Well, let's see. A little tiny, I'm not sure what kind of category I should put that in, so I went ahead and put it in here too. It's a K-bar. It's one of their TDK models. I think it's the smallest one they make. It's kind of like a cross between a regular knife and a push dagger. You can lace it into your boot, and it pretty much disappears. I think they cost about $15. Very thin. There's a ton of different ways you can hold it. The utility uses on it are fairly limited, but for such a small knife, you can carry it as a neck knife or anything else. It's got a lot of potential. It's definitely worth the money. You won't regret buying it. Alrighty. Here's one of the Gerber Bear Grylls models, the older ones. This is for the money. I was surprised. It's a decently made knife. It's sharp, very comfortable handle, kind of a rubberized grip, very comfortable. They make these, I believe, with a Dayglow orange paracord now, but I prefer this handle. It's definitely got a better grip on it. I'm not a big fan of the Bear Grylls line, but that's mainly because they're made in China. It's got a clip on it for boot or belt. It's not one of the better sheaths because if you can see that, it doesn't lay very flat. But for the money, it's not bad. You're not gonna You know, you're not going to miss the money if you buy that. Alrighty, that's my EDC carry knives so far. I was also going to say, if you do choose some kind of a knife, take a little time to look at what other people see when they look at that knife. I'm not a big fan of political correctness, but if you get a knife that says the Avenger or Pig Sticker, you know, if you ever have to use it in a defensive situation, God forbid, if you do go to court over that, what is the judge going to think, or jury going to think when they see that? You know, they're going to look at you as the bad guy, and possibly, and it's definitely going to make things harder on you. So just kind of take that into mind when you get a knife, and don't just look at, you know, don't pick a knife out just because it looks cool or badass. I'm sure not, you know, very few of you do, but I'm just saying, take a little time to think about what others see in that knife, because there's a lot of other people that aren't as knife savvy and informed, and they think more with their heart than with their brain. This video is basically one of the first 3 that I've made, but I'll be doing a lot more videos. I'm kind of going for the Everyman's Preparedness channel. I know you see a whole bunch of knives here. I'm sure a lot of you have got millions more knives than that. And I say Everyman's Preparedness channel because I'm just a regular, everyday Joe. I work a part-time job. You know, struggle to make ends meet. I'm not a rich guy, nor even well off by far. So you're not going to see me, you know, having every single new knife and doodad and gadget out there. Definitely. I don't have the money for that. There's bills and there's other things that I need to pay. So if you're looking for a channel to get all, you know, that somebody shows off all the latest, most expensive gadgets, this is not it. What you will see is honest appraisals and down-to-earth appraisals of the gear that I do have and that I do review. Now, every one of these knives I've bought for my own money. None of the factories or companies are giving me any knives. It'd sure be nice if they did, but it wouldn't change my review. I'm still going to be honest about it. I'll be doing some camo and other reviews like that. I'd like to do some firearm reviews. Unfortunately, I don't have a place to go shoot and film at the same time. I mean, I could probably go to the range and shoot any time, but they probably wouldn't look very fondly at it if I took a camera in there, and you probably wouldn't be able to hear very much. You know, you'd hear me talking and, you know. So it's just not practical until I get a place to do that kind of thing. You'll also see me doing urban survival. I'll be doing zero option survival, which I'm sure I've described it in some of my videos, or maybe I haven't. Zero option survival is basically when you have no option. You are at option 0. Let's say there's a natural disaster, your house was destroyed. Maybe you're out of town, you just came home, you don't know where your family is, possibly you're a single guy like me. Your house is destroyed. Your preps, your gear, everything gone. Maybe you don't have any family, maybe they're hundreds of miles away and your car is destroyed, maybe your car doesn't work, maybe you don't have one. What do you do? Well, I'll show you. It's kind of easy to think of, but it's a kind of a taboo subject. There's a lot of garbage cans, trash cans, car washes, and a few years ago I was doing a lot of scrapping metals. I was picking up cans, so I'd go through the gas stations and through the car washes, digging through the trash for aluminum cans. Well, I got the idea for this video because you would not believe what I found. A lot of times I would find up to $6 or $7 in change, sometimes bills. I found basically a whole bag of knives, a lot of them good knives. I found a buck 110 that just had a little tiny tip of the blade nipped off, and that's it. So if you're in that kind of a survival situation, you're still going to be able to find probably trash and things that are scattered around. Food, same thing, clothes. Well, you'll see what I'm talking about. It's definitely interesting. But I'll also be doing a lot of Bowie knife videos, as you can see. One thing I was going to show you that I just got today. It's a new antique Bowie knife. Oh yeah. I'm not sure how old it is. It's got a walking lion right there. They said it was Rabone Brothers. I'm not sure how old it is. I'm not fooling myself into thinking it's a pre-Civil War, but it's a English Sheffield Bowie knife. So you'll be seeing me do a lot of Bowie knife fighting, Bowie knife reviews in the future, and a few other things. Well, a lot of other things actually. Well, that's about it. This is Mr. Ruger Cat 45, and I thank you for viewing. You all have a nice day.